Okay, so let's look at this. This is the Air OS infrastructure, centralized infrastructure setup. First thing I want you to note is first off, our AeroNet APs are down here at the bottom. They are going through our access switches and then up through our distribution switches. This is the core, folks. I don't know why they didn't label this, but this is the core we're looking at. And off of our core, we have our Air AOS, our Air OS wireless LAN controller. This is like the 5508 or the 8500 series. Now, these are all our CAPWAP, the basic tunnels that deliver AP directly to that wireless LAN controller for whatever it is we're doing, whether it's authentication, whatever it is we're doing. This can even be the anchor here. We've thrown that term around before. Anchor, if you don't know what that is, please look it up. So there's lots to think of. This is our centralized management. APs go up and they're communicating with our wireless LAN controller. I'm going to remove anchor because I don't want you guys thinking about that so much right now. We use our CAPWAP tunnels. Remember, we're tunneling. I'm trying to get my tunnel to look like a tunnel. We're tunneling directly to our wireless LAN controller that is going to make the decision on guest access. Remember, we have our guest, let's say employee 1 is connected up through the wireless environment. This connection is made through the AP. The AP decides what SSID they've agreed on. That SSID is delivered up to the wireless LAN controller. The wireless LAN controller defines the SSID to VLAN. And then we know what parts of this network we can traverse, right? So lots of different things going on. Now there is the mobility agent. So the mobility agent aspect of this is something that the wireless LAN controller does. And the mobility agent gives us our CAPWAP tunnels and our user database or client database. And then it also gives us our policies. What's allowed for those users, right? So we have our CAPWAP, we have our user database policy, user database and policies applied. And that's the mobility agent, which is a part of the Air OS wireless LAN controller. Now there is the mobility controller. So let's take this wireless LAN controller and cut it in half. The mobility agent is here. The mobility controller is also here. This defines the mobility of clients. Who can move where? This also defines the RRM. So the IDS, I can determine if there's been any intrusion on my wireless environment. More on that later. And then last but not least, for the mobility client side, we have radio resource management. So actually we're talking about the antenna and radio management of the different APs. So again, wireless LAN controller, 2 parts: mobility, access, and mobility control. Again, 2 parts to our wireless LAN controller: mobility agent and the mobility controller. Okay. The agent we talked about is going to do our client database, is going to do our CAPWAP termination, and it's going to do our policies. Our mobility controller is going to define the mobility of the users, our radio resource management, and intrusion detection. Now, this doesn't change a lot when we go with a centralized iOS XE model WLC 5760. We still have the mobility agent and the mobility controller. Okay, same exact roles. And as you can see here, we're basically doing the same thing. We still have our APs, our access switches, our distribution switches. We're still traversing our enterprise environment through these tunnels, the CAPWAP tunnels that come up and drop things off to the wireless LAN controller. Once that is configured, then we are able to understand how our traffic should traverse the network as a whole, what VLAN we belong to, all sorts of information. But those are the two things we're talking about. We're talking about in this lesson, we're talking about the Air OS 5508 and 8500 mainly, and we're talking about the wireless LAN controller 5760 or IOSXE.